When ACC football coaches get to speak anonymously about their conference rivals, the gloves come off.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On this episode, we will talk about the latest update. Is it a significant update or not in Florida State versus the ACC in court? There is an update. You guys can help us decide how significant. We'll talk about where ACC football teams stand in the updated ESPN FPI rankings heading into the 2024 college football season. Maybe some of you feel your teams were a little hard done by these rankings, but Kenton, I love when this comes out annually. Athlon Sports has been doing this for a very long time. They collect these quotes every year from ACC coaches speaking anonymously about their conference rivals. So they don't have to attach their names to these quotes. They can speak candidly. Sometimes they say very nice things. Sometimes they say some not so nice things. And I definitely feel a little bit attacked as someone who covers Miami, because I noticed like a lot of the quotes that these ACC coaches say about other teams are pretty nice until they start talking about Miami. It's like, oh man, not so nice. But who do you want us to start with here? If we can go through like the 5 or 6 teams that are favored for the ACC championship this year.
Well, let's go with our cash cows first. Start off with Florida State. Let's hear what people have to say about the Noles.
All right, so Florida State coming off a 13-0 regular season, an ACC championship. We both agree they should have gotten into the college football playoff. They didn't.
Absolutely.
So here are anonymous quotes from 3 ACC coaches talking about FSU. First one of these says, "Give Mike Norvell credit. They navigated a really weird year and kept the program going at a top level." Second quote says, "They might not be a 13-0 again this year, but they are suing their own conference. So there's another big distraction like last year's undefeated streak. Norvell has done a fantastic job keeping all that noise out of their program." And then the third and final quote from a different ACC coach is, "The roster is following the same blueprint as last year. In the spring, they had a bunch of breakout guys who were just transferring in at key positions like quarterback and defensive end. Mike's may be the closest in the industry to deciphering how to balance 4-year high school recruiting, team culture, and portal hunting. It worked for them last season, and they should be back in the hunt again this season." The interesting is that middle quote about like navigating the distractions. Obviously, like I wouldn't argue, Norvell obviously did a pretty good job of that last year, especially those last couple of games of the regular season where they had to play without Jordan Travis. They beat Florida. They beat Louisville in the ACC championship game without him. Now, as far as like navigating the distractions in terms of the lawsuits, like we're not really going to know until they start playing football. Like I would like to think on their behalf that suing your own conference is not going to be a distraction for the football team, but we don't really know until we know.
Right, and that's one of those things. I will say this. The things that are being said about Florida State, very shiny, very shiny. I mean, in all honesty, this is the best that you could hope for in this situation from your opponents, because these are, the words that are being said are, hey, this is a great team. This is a team that, while there is a distraction, this still is a very good team. This is a team to watch out for. This is a team that is a front runner for a reason. So all in all, I think if I'm looking at this from the standpoint of Norvell and company, this is very good verbiage. But in terms of what you asked about with, well, is it a distraction in terms of the lawsuit? I would say no. As a football player, you don't really care too much for what's going on. Put the ball down. Put the ball down. I'm concerned with things that are directly affecting this team. If there was, it would be different if the university were suing Norvell or Norvell were suing the ACC. Then it's like, oh, okay, this is a very direct tie-in type of thing. But you're so far removed. You talk to the athletic director once or twice a year, or maybe NC State was a little unique in that way, but Debbie Yaw was our athletic director at the time when I played, and love Debbie down. She's a wonderful woman. She's responsible for many of the great Wolfpack things that we see going on today. But I only spoke to her, once or twice a year. It wasn't like me and her had a great relationship and we were like the best of pals and all that. Like it's just not like that between teams and the people, the powers that be that are forming these lawsuits. So it shouldn't be a distraction to the team.
All right, so let's go to Clemson because it was good we started with Florida State because Florida State, they are the odds-on favorites to repeat as ACC championships. And then the team with the next best odds are the Clemson Tigers. There are 3 anonymous quotes about Clemson. First one of these being 2024 could be a turning point for this program under Dabo. The writing is on the wall. You can't ignore the transfer market, and you have to play ball with NIL. How will he respond? Excuse me, I lost my voice. How will he respond to that? Middle quote says, hiring offensive line coach Matt Luke was a really sharp move. There's this idea out there that Dabo won't listen to outsiders, and Matt's a guy who can bridge the gap. He's worked in the SEC forever. He knows how to recruit at the highest level, and he knows how to manage the politics and dynamics. He could really help. Now, the third quote, this is the one I think, Kenton, we can have a little fun with. Is this a little too optimistic heading into next year? So a third anonymous ACC coach said, Cade Klubnik is the real deal. When you watch his 23 tape, he turns a corner as the season goes. He's starting to get it, and he could break out as a true superstar this season. So you have one of those quotes, I think rightfully is a little concerned about Clemson's, approach or lack of approach in the transfer portal. Another one of these quotes is very high on a quarterback you and I are not sold on.
Not only are they high on a quarterback that you and I are not sold on, I hate to do this, and I really do, because now it's going to get into, oh my God, Kenton, you're being so rude, you're being so unfair. But let's be very honest about this, right? What really good defenses did Cade Klubnik put it on at the end of last year, right? If you're talking about the back half of the schedule, we'll say the last 6 games. The bowl game against Kentucky where they have multiple opt-outs and whatnot, I mean, I guess, sure, we'll give you that one because you hung 38 on them. Sure. South Carolina, you won by scoring 16 points. UNC, a defense that couldn't stop a running nose with Robitussin, 3 COVID shots, and all the tissue in the world. You hung 31. Who didn't hang 30 on the Dirty Foot Club last year? Georgia Tech. If it wasn't for some of the turnovers in that game, it's tough for me to say, hey, they scored 42 points in that game. But again, Georgia Tech was one of the worst defenses in the nation. That's just a fact. As much as I love Key and company, they were not a good defense. And then you look at the Notre Dame game, that's probably the only one where I say they put up good numbers against a good defense. Now, mind you, we just ran down their last 5 games of the season. Their 6th, a loss to NC State where they put up 17 points. I struggle to see this like clicking against good teams and figuring it out. Now, I will say that some of his decisions were not as bad. I will give you that. But to say that he put it together in a meaningful way where I'm like, oh, this is breakout superstar territory, I disagree with that. I think that he's moved into potentially lower end of win with, higher end of win in spite of quarterback. I think that's where he is. But breakout year, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you notice that these anonymous coaches, they seem like they went out of their way to say some pretty nice things about Florida State and Clemson. Mm-hmm. I didn't get that sense when I was reading the Miami quotes.
No, not at all.
Miami, will do Miami next because they have the 3rd best odds to win the conference. I also want to talk Louisville, NC State, Virginia Tech, which is a team that's very intriguing to Kenton and I because I think they could end up making some noise this coming season. So you want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Folks, Game Time is the only ticket app that I use because I'm getting everything on this service. I'm getting the best prices. I'm getting the best last-minute deals. I'm not getting any hidden fees. I'm getting views from my seat. I'm telling you guys, this app is a game changer. If you want to get out to the NBA Finals, Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Stanley Cup Finals as well. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Guys, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. You can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. The all-in pricing is a game changer. They show you the total up front. They don't tack on hidden fees at the end. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Locked On, we love this network, and Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. And okay, so reading the anonymous quotes about Miami, it gave me some material for Locked On Canes, Kenton, because I noticed that coaches went out of their way to try to say nice things about a lot of teams. I didn't feel like they went out of their way to say anything nice about Miami, and obviously, based on what happened last year, especially in that Georgia Tech game, I understand that there's going to be criticism that comes to the table. So there are 4 anonymous coaches. For most teams, there were 3 quotes. For Miami, there were 4 quotes. Let me read these to you. The first quote from an anonymous ACC coach is, "It's a situation where the sum is not greater than the parts, and that falls directly on the head coach," they say. There's more talent there, more resources than the overall team you're getting. That's the problem right now. Second quote, "The Tyler Van Dyke experiment is over, and it's on them to fit their offense to Cam Ward, not the other way around. That kid has an established skill set that can help them, so they shouldn't try to make him accommodate their playbook." Third quote, this one is strictly football. "The defense is strongest to weakest from the front to back. They're not as good in the secondary as they should be." And the final quote, "The coaching issues cost them a game last season, and overall, there are questions about how effective this staff is at getting the most out of otherwise talented players. The biggest question is the sidelines, not the roster." They were not too kind to Mario Cristobal and I have some thoughts, but I'll let you go first, Kenton.
Mario. I don't know if you listen to this show. I don't know if you listen to Locked On Canes with Donno. But if you're listening, brother, get in the gym, play Eye of the Tiger, do some sit-ups, do some push-ups, sit in the park. Don't listen to nothing but these quotes on repeat all offseason long. Do you hear what they're saying about you? They're saying your players are fine, magnificent players, beautiful gowns. It's just the person that's styling it is ugly. I'm telling you right now, Mario. I am telling you right now. I have never heard something so offensive be said about a coach ever. In terms of when you think about what a coach's job is, right? Your job is just to get everybody together and get the best out of your talent. And when I say I haven't heard worse things said about a coach, I know some people are going to say, "Oh, you didn't hear what they were saying about Taggart." No, they said that Taggart was disorganized. They never said he has this level of talent and continuously drags them down. Multiple other coaches saying he's doing great on the recruiting trail, but boy, does he stink it up when they get to what? Mario, you better. Again, your training montage, go hit the Swiss Alps. Put the weight vest on. Put the Bane mask on to restrict your oxygen. Right. Go train at high altitude because they playing on your top, Mario. They disrespecting you, baby. They disrespecting you.
So, I'm not going to argue the criticism of the coaching decisions. I mean, how can I argue that, right? When it comes to decision-making with the use of timeouts, the unforgivable decision not to go into victory formation, take a kneel down last year. I can't, but one thing is, I do think that there's a bit of an overrating in terms of what Miami's talent has been in recent years. I think that's a really fair thing to look at this year. This seems like the most talented roster Miami has had in over a decade. And I follow this roster very closely. I have for a very long time. Like, I think the roster heading into the 2024 season is more talented than it's been. Might even have to go back to when Randy Shannon had a number one recruiting class like a decade and a half. Like, I think it's a really talented roster. I think the last couple of years when Cristobal was here, and certainly the Manny Diaz years, I think the roster was very flawed. It was more talented last year than it was the year prior. But, when you have completely inept at times quarterback play and you can't count on your offense not to turn the football over with regularity, it really hurts you in a lot of other ways. So I think that the hope in Miami would be you understand that your coach has had limitations with game day decisions, and I don't know if that'll ever get dramatically better. You would hope that certain mistakes can be learned from, that you're never going to not take a knee ever again. But I do think that part of the hope and expectation in Miami is if you can overwhelmingly recruit a more talented roster than your conference rivals, the talent is going to take care of some of that. And I know that this is going to sound like a tremendous excuse, and maybe it is, but with that Georgia Tech game, yes, it was an unforgivable decision not to take the knee. But then, you still had a running back that didn't hold on to the football, even though I thought his knee was down, but he still didn't hold on to the football. And then you had a couple of defensive backs who completely went to sleep and allowed Georgia. So, talent did play into that as well. Again, the coaching mistake was unforgivable, but talent can compensate for some of that. And that's what Miami's hoping to achieve.
Biden on a double move with under 10 seconds left is the most insane thing I've ever heard of. Like, they have to score a touchdown. They were not down 3 points. If he catches that ball where the receiver originally pretended his route was stopping, brother, you're okay.
Game's over.
You're fine. Hey, I'm going to stay on top of everything. I'm going to stay. Hey, you go ahead and take your little post stop route. I'll be right here. I'll be right here. Yeah. Everything will be fine. But I digress. What a mess. What a mess that game was.
Yeah. But like you said, I don't know if Cristobal even cares to read these quotes or hear about them, but if he does, that's motivation and bulletin board material. And, it is what it is. So, all right, let's look next at Louisville, who is they've got odds just behind Miami to win the conference. They're fourth in line. Here are 3 anonymous quotes about the Cardinals. Watch out for these guys. They were ahead of schedule last season and sneaked up on a lot of teams in our league. That's quote number 1. Quote number 2, the offense is good, but not that level Brom normally operates at. The quarterback play has been good and solid, but never really great. So they brought in Shuck to take over the job. That's a pretty benign quote. Third quote, the defense really carried them at parts of last season. They're stronger than you think and play really physical. Quote number 4, final quote, they don't get enough national attention. Brom's back home. He knows that state and can recruit better talent to that place than Purdue. They can be just as good this year, especially if the offense opens up more. It is worth noting, a team that came in second place in the conference last year is predicted to come in fourth place this year. Maybe they're being slept on a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what it is about the Browns, but whenever they get in Louisville, it's like the one of the side villains in Thor Ragnarok when he was like, yeah, whenever I go to Olympus, I get way stronger. Or whenever I go to I can't remember what the name of it was, but the place that Thor is from.
Asgard.
Yes, whenever he goes to Asgard, he gets exponentially stronger. That's how the Browns are with Louisville. As soon as they step foot down in Louisville, they don't even got to be at the Yum Center. They don't got to be at Papa John's Field or whatever they're calling it these days. As long as they're near Louisville, it's like they get this massive power up and they become these gods amongst men. But in all seriousness, their quarterback play does have to improve, but that defense is severely underrated. I really, really think that there are lots of parts of that defense that are much better than they're said to be. And the coaching on the defensive side of the ball, spectacular last year. So if they can combine that with a healthy Tyler Shuck, that is the guy that they believe he is, not the guy that I know he is, the guy that they believe he is, they'll be special.
All right, let's talk about NC State, which is your area of expertise. There are 3 quotes from ACC coaches speaking anonymously about the Wolfpack. The first of those is Grayson McCall transferring in means that they're going to push it to a win now season. That kid is a born leader, a legit gamer. He's a success story for the portal. He stayed on at Coastal and gave them a full run, and now he gets a shot with a P4 program. Quote number 2, Dave Doran signing the extension was much deserved. That guy never gets the respect he deserves when you talk about elite head coaches. They turned a corner last year, especially when you go out recruiting and hear about that win over North Carolina. Final quote, is this the year they put it all together? If you match McCall with that defense, it might be. They've never had the breakout conference title season in their history. This is a good chance. And I'll let you wax poetic on this, but I do. Every time I see people rank NC State like 5th or 6th in the ACC, I'm like, how can that be? I know they lost some top-end defensive talent from last year, but that defense still looks really good to me, and I think they've made an upgrade at quarterback and an upgrade with the skill position talent too.
Oh, absolutely. This is the year that this is the crazy part about NC State. They built sustainability in a way that we are not used to with NC State. This team is so insane because you talk about losing top-end defensive talent, and yet they bring back a corner that has not allowed a touchdown in like 2 years.
Right.
You talk about losing top-end defensive talent, and yet they bring back one of the most versatile defensive linemen in the nation, not just in the ACC, in Davin Vann, and a sack specialist in Brad Hibbler coming off the edge as well, where you're like, man, every time he's on the field, you have got to know where 47 is. And so you talk about the offense, and it's like nothing NC State has ever seen before, because you have former All-American in Noah Rogers, freshman All-American in Kevin Concepcion, Dakari Collins, so many guys, Juice Vereen, Justin Jolie, the tackle breaking his tight end in the nation last year, and you combine that with McCall and an all-ACC running back in Jordan Waters. It's like, where did this come from? Yeah. Almost overnight, this NC State team has propelled themselves onto a situation where this has to be the breakout year. But even if it isn't, everybody says CJ Bailey is much better than everyone thought. And then you look at the ages of all those receivers. Kevin Concepcion, true sophomore. Noah Rogers, going to be a redshirt freshman. Juice Vereen, going to be a sophomore. Justin Jolie, I believe, is going to be a senior looking at next year. Or looking at the year after and whatnot. But even still, you've got Juice Vereen and Gus Ritchie coming behind him. You've got so many weapons. And I forgot to mention Jonathan Paylor, one of the fastest guys in the nation. And so you've got so many weapons at NC State where it's like, when did this happen? Because last year that receiving room was completely devoid of talent, with all due respect to those young men. So this could be a special year for NC State. And like you talk about, Doran is all about consistency. You need the spike year. You need the double-digit win year. You need the year to put your program on the map nationally, because you're on the map regionally. People know NC State is nothing to be played with in the ACC. Show it nationally now.
Yeah, again, I can't help but notice these coaches are saying nice things about every team except for Miami.
They hate the Canes. They hate the – which,
you know what?
Down.
I like
Use
that.
down.
I like that. I like being hated. I don't mind it. I want to talk about what they said about Virginia Tech when we come back. Plus, are Florida State and the ACC, are they inching closer toward a settlement, or is this a bit of a false alarm? We'll get to that and so much more. Keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And you notice none of those coaches who talked about Miami were like, hey, like, I think Cam Ward's really good. Like the one coach that talked about Cam Ward was basically like, well, they're not going to use him correctly, right? I mean, hold on, let me see if they say anything nice about Boston College. Like Boston College is not necessarily a very good team on paper. Well, let me see what they say about if they say nicer things about Boston College than Miami.
Oh, absolutely. Boston College definitely got nicer things. I remember reading the article.
Bill O'Brien has all the experience in the world. I think the issue here is that job isn't getting any easier. I don't even know what that means. They overachieved to a certain degree last season because a lot of people believe Jeff Hafley's move was to get out of there before they fell under 500 and got fired. Actually, that's not a very nice quote. This one, though, keeping Thomas Castellanos was a huge deal for them because he could have a breakout season with an offensive-minded guy like Bill. But scheme isn't their problem. It's just hard to place. It's just a hard place to recruit when you're competing with the top-end programs of this league. All right, so I guess that's not that nice. I want to see what they say about Virginia Tech, because you and I, Kenton, are pretty high on the Hokies. Like they could sneak up on some teams this year.
For sure.
Okay, so Virginia Tech, 4 anonymous quotes. First one, no one's sure if they can go back to the old days where Brent Pry is talking about being Clemson before Clemson, but they're showing proof of concept already. Recruiting is better. They're still building out their state and the Carolinas, and the defense is the soul of the program. Second quote, the offense really clicked when they replaced Grant Wells with Kyron Drones, and now they can rally around him. He's a big, solid runner, and if they can improve on his field vision and slow some things down, they can take the next step. Third quote, they're not in the class of an FSU or Clemson, but there's a good chance they're the best of the rest by season's end. That's actually a pretty bullish quote. Pry committed to the long-term rebuild here, and it's starting to show results, is the final quote. But that third quote, that's basically implying that they actually could be right behind Florida State and Clemson, which would mean that they would be in front of the likes of NC State, Miami, and Louisville. So I thought that was a pretty bullish quote.
There's a world where that happens, but in that world, Kyron Drones is different. He and Byshaw Tootin combined to be the deadliest rushing force in probably the ACC, and if not the country. And not to mention, you got to do it by air or by land if you're talking about Kyron Drones, because objectively speaking, when people think of Virginia Tech's offense right now, nobody is terrified of those receivers. They've got some big bodies on the outside. They've got some guys that can go up, high point the ball well on the outside. But if I'm looking at that team, I'm much more likely to bring more guys up towards the line of scrimmage and say, you know what? I'm going to dare Kyron and company. If y'all can beat me through the air, if y'all can get behind folks, sure, more power to you. I don't think you can. So, there is a world where they end up being the best of the rest. But again, it's going to require some very heavy lifting by them, and it's going to require that defensive line to be very stout. They are going to have to play lights out football, because I've long talked about how they're the group that I look at and I say they're a strength of the team when it comes to pass rushing, but you have to stop the run first. The old adage for defensive line goes, stop the run, then have some fun. Right. You cannot have the fun without stopping the run. So that's going to be quintessential that's going to be essential to whether or not they can find themselves as the best of the rest group. I'm not sure it can happen, but if they can find a way, this could be a special year for the Hokies.
Right, and if not this year, it seems like they're on the trajectory to be even better in 2025, 2026, Absolutely. If it doesn't all come together. All right, let's step into the courtroom, because there was a filing on Tuesday. This is in the FSU versus ACC case, which means the one taking place in Florida. They're moving a step closer towards mediation, Kenton. This is from the court filing from Tuesday. Plaintiff, Florida State University Board of Trustees, and defendant, Atlantic Coast Conference, notify the court that they have reached the required stipulation as to mediation. Let's talk about what that actually means, because when some people see that sentence out of context, they think, oh, they've agreed to a settlement. This is coming to it. That's not what that means. That just means they've taken a step closer. They've agreed to meet with a mediator, but right. This does not guarantee they reach a mediation, right? There is Absolutely. Still a chance, and if I'm looking at it from the ACC's point of view, where a lot of people say the ACC wants to drag this out and fight it tooth and nail as long as they can, because time is their biggest enemy if Florida State can speed this up. So I don't necessarily see motivation here to settle through mediation. So I don't think this update really gets us a whole lot closer to a resolution.
Yeah, I don't think this is a win for either side in terms of the battle here. This much more feels like just an event that's happening than an event for one side where you're like, oh, hold on, what's happening here? They agreed to, and let's be very clear about the wording here. They agreed to the stipulations for mediation. So that just means that they agreed to the scenario and agreed to, hey, we can get a mediator under these circumstances, which they were so far apart before. The chasm was so big, they couldn't even agree on that. So it doesn't really do much to move the needle to say, hey, this is going to be one of those definitive moments where we look back and say, man, that moment where they agreed to the stipulations of mediation completely flipped it. They did a complete 180 at this moment.
Yeah, well, we'll see if when that mediation occurs, if they get closer to some kind of an agreement. But guys, thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you listen to the audio version, fantastic. You can get us free, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Make sure you subscribe, and we will talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.